Alrighty, well, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're calling in from, and for those of you who may be watching this on the playback, welcome to our call. My name is Mike DiMuccio. I'm just going to host this call. I'm a Royal Diamond with Nikken, and we have two other speakers along with myself who are going to share a little bit about why they got involved in Nikken and how that has affected them. There are many of you who are watching this from different satellite areas in the city, or in the country, I should say, or in other countries. And some of you are hosting events. So this is really for the benefit of the people in the audience who are perhaps at the point of making a decision as to whether or not they want to participate in the Nikken family. Join this wonderful wellness community as we build a large international community and influence people to make better choices for their health, their well-being, and their finances. And a couple of these people made those choices some time ago. In fact, you may be impressed to know our first speaker is Tanas. He's actually en route he's normally from Toronto, but he's en route to Pennsylvania with his family. Bo has a background in music originally, and then he was in the business world, both as an entrepreneur and as a salesperson and he'll tell you a little bit more about his story. But 28 years with Nikken coming up in December, like myself, that's quite a tenure with this opportunity, which speaks, I think, to the value of the business, the longevity of the business, the credibility of the business, for it to be that sustainable for that period of time when you consider the volatility in business and in the economy and in the changes in the way business is being done. To have a business that's been around for that long, and he'll tell you more about his story, I think says a lot about the possibility of a future with Nikken if you're considering that. So Bo, are you there? Can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Wonderful. Okay, we can see you. And Bo, why don't you tell us your story?
Be happy to. First of all, thanks, Mike, for your leadership and for organizing this call. When I first heard of Nikken through you and my original sponsor, Bruce Black, I wasn't really aware of it at the time, but I was looking for something. You know, when you do something for a while, you're used to it and you think this is the way it is. But I was really I was asked a few questions, and it dawned on me, yeah, I need a change. I need more income. I need a better life. Like you mentioned, I had been in music for many years. When my kids were born in the early 80s, I became an entrepreneur just to make more money and a more stable income. You know, having children, for those of you who have children, that kind of changes everything. And it sure did for me, all my responsibilities. And I was just thinking about that. I was talking to a young person and how you can be so involved in yourself when you're young. But man, the moment your kids are born, all your problems disappear. Your focus goes on the kids. And it was no longer about me. It was about what life can I create for my kids. So I became an entrepreneur. I had 2 successful video stores. Any of you who are old enough to remember VHS and beta videos, sold those, made some very good money, and opened up a restaurant and lost everything. So not a great move for me, but important lessons. It's not how much you make, it's how much you keep. And that really put me in a place where I had no cash to invest into a new business. And once you've been free as an entrepreneur, it's hard to go back and punch your clock for somebody else. So I became a real estate agent, and the timing was bad. I became an agent when the market was crashing. So it was not an easy time, very stressful, but it led me to Bruce Black, a wealthy businessman who had introduced me to a Nikken, who you had sponsored. And that impressed me. Why is someone so wealthy doing this? And he had such a remarkable product experience. He wanted to buy the company, but it wasn't for sale. And he became a consultant like everybody else. And he told me about it. And for me, it was an interesting thing because I'm struggling financially. And here's a multimillionaire telling me, Bo, you got to do this Nikken thing with me. I think we're going to make some real money. I'll tell you, he had my attention. And I got involved. I was a real avid student of what you and other leaders in Nikken were saying, which is to share the products and the opportunity with a lot of people. one or two a day. And I did that one or two a day for about 4 months, over 100 people. And some weren't interested, some only wanted products, and a bunch also wanted to experience all of Nikken. I traveled through Latin America a lot, and I call it Nikken Todos, all of Nikken, the products, the opportunity, the freedom. And I helped those people to do what I did. Some did a little, some did more. But within, about a few months, there were over 100 people in my network actively doing something. And within a year or about 2 years, there were 1,000 people. Now it's grown into many thousands. And it's because of a great philosophy, a great company, a legacy company that's been around now since 1975 when I started in Japan. And that impressed me as well, a company that's been around, solid, done billions in sales. This is not your normal company. And the philosophy of the 5 pillars of health, having a balanced life, not just working hard, making a lot of money, but having time freedom. And so by having a network of people using the products and sharing the products and the opportunity with others, you eventually, within a few months, a year or two, can be earning more and more income on a passive basis because your network, through its consumption and business activities, is creating business volume.
Well, Bo, how's that worked out for you?
It's worked out great. I've been able to travel the world to bring my children and family and friends who couldn't even afford to go on trips to Europe and elsewhere and to pay for everybody because of the abundance that Nikken has created for me. So it's been a wonderful life experience in every way possible. And it's very gratifying because the products change lives.
Well, Bo, I know you were en route, and I was going to ask you real briefly, why today? Why are you still involved?
I love it. The products work. You can't not talk about the products to people. Everybody needs something in Nikken, whether better health, better finances, more freedom, less stress, or doing something of value, something meaningful to them. And Nikken has all of that. And so I just enjoy it. I've had the freedom to do other things that I like. I'm writing a screenplay. I'm working on music because Nikken is working even when I'm on holidays. So it's a beautiful thing. I'm very grateful.
Wonderful. Well, Bo, I'd like to ask this question. I'll ask Susan as well. If you had your first 90 days to live over again, because there's a lot of people who are going to embark on their first 90 days. So if you had your first 90 days to live over again, knowing what you know today, what would you do different or what would you do the same?
I would do much of the same because it turned out really well. I'm still getting paid 28 years later on activity that I did in January, February, March, April 1992 because of the network and people duplicating and going on. What I would do differently is I would do that once a year for at least your first 5 years. Create a massive explosion of activity, not just one time like I did, and it worked out well, but it could have worked out much weller if I had done that in my second year. Because that activity, you find some people who really want to play the game as well. Now you focus on them for the rest of the year. Next year, do it again. Put in some new blood, some new activity, and your business could be immense. That's
and you've got quite a business, and I know you're not going to say it, so I will. You've earned over $10 million with Nikken, so not a small business, but great advice. So thanks for joining us this morning and sharing your wisdom.
Thank you.
Now we're going to go down to where I hope it's a little bit warmer.
It is.
Awesome. All right. Well, we've got Susan Carver, who is in Florida, I believe, right now. Where she lives, and she's going to share her story. Susan, I don't recall how long, but I know it's been in the teens of years. Have you hit 20 years with Nikken yet?
I just celebrated 25.
Oh, wow. Okay, so you're a veteran like us. Okay, so 25 years.
Is that a silver?
That's you're a royal diamond with Nikken. 25 years in Nikken. Your background is marketing. And I guess this was the opportunity that you locked into when you saw some potential. Why don't you tell us why you got involved with Nikken? Susan Carver.
Well, Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be on the call. I believed in something called reproductive residual income, and I was very attractive to passive income. Now, Mike, you're a musician. Bo is a musician. I can't carry a tune, or I could barely carry a harmonica, but I was familiar with how musicians earn money. So they go ahead and they go in the studio and they put that song together that's maybe 10 hours or something, conducting that song and reworking it and paying for the studio time. But if that song that they put that time and donated that time in and invested that time in, if that song picks up and works, it can be worth passive income for the rest of their life. So the song that comes to mind, what's the one with Mariah Carey? All I Want for Christmas. Is that her song?
That's her song.
Is that her song?
Yeah.
Do you realize I Googled that, and it took her and the guy that wrote it less than 30 minutes to write that song. They had 0 musicians. Don't tell Bo, he'll cry. And they recorded it on a computer. And she's made over $20 million in less than 30 minutes. I mean, that's the kind of passive income that every single time comes in. And those are all fantasies. Those are all stories that you hear about, but, oh, that can never happen to me. Well, the thing that was attractive about this type of business is you can find a quality product, but you get to play in that Mariah Carey fantasy musician type of world, where if you talk to that one person that likes and mirrors your energy and your vision and sees the value of it, that they can go ahead and create another and another and another, and it starts to mushroom and multiply, and then that creates the passive income, but it also creates the reproductive residual income. That one thing about Mariah Carey's song is it'll never give birth to another song, but she has amazing passive income. Well, the business that we're offering everyone on the call today is we get to play in 2 groups. We get to get that passive income that you work, like Bo talked about, for those 4 months. I'm getting ready to go to another country and work in Chile in a couple of days. And those 12 days, I could make $50,000 a year, $30,000 a year for the rest of my life. That's pretty exciting to be able to have that opportunity instead of work like a dog for $30,000 or $50,000 a year, or if you have a good job and then take a part-time job where you're away from your family, less time for yourself to make that $30,000 or $50,000 doing Uber or some side hustle. So I love the fact that I get to get that passive income, which is very attractive to me, but then our income reproduces. So I'm not going to Chile by myself. I actually have about 12 business partners that are meeting me down there, and we're all doing the same thing. So on this call, the opportunity here is to create passive income that can be minimal, which is $500 a month that pays your power bill and your water bill, or it can be something substantial. I just passed the $3 million mark last year, so that's kind of cool and fun. But my investment, it was almost nothing, but it was putting in the sweat equity, putting in that focus, and I absolutely love it. So I get to give that gift when I get on the airplane in a couple of days and go give that gift that was given to me, and to keep going with it.
Fantastic. Wow. Well, that's exciting. And you know what? Hearing you say it in the terms of the music and being a musician, I could totally identify with that, thinking about my journey in Nikken. Now, like I asked Bo, Susan, if you were to take your first 90 days in Nikken over again and do it over again, what you're going to be recommending to those teams in Chile, what would you do different, or what would you do the same?
Well, the thing that I would advise is Bo got off to a great start. The way he got off to his start is very famous and well known in the company. He had a lot more discipline. I think he had a lot more business experience, because when I started, I was like in my late 20s and had only had a job. I was not really an entrepreneur. I was always working for someone else. So I didn't really come in with that type of awareness. I made $12,000 my first year because I did it as kind of a side hustle on the side. And, but I wasn't coachable. I wasn't trainable. And so then I got my act together, started to learn how it's done. And then my business started to take off. But what I would do differently, and what I advise people to do, is that Bo saw as many people in in 4 months that I did in 2 years. And when you have that drip versus a gush, you're going to have a different results. So Bo's got $7 million more on the back end than I have. Why? Is it he a better presenter? Well, I don't know how we'd measure that. Does he work more hours than me? I don't know how we'd measure that. But what we can measure is that it took me 2 years to see as many people as he did in 4 months. So when you take that amount of people, let's say the magic number is 100 or 150 or 80 or whatever it is, and you compress it from a drop into a gusher with like a fire hydrant is the way Bo took off, and I was more of a drip, then that's probably the reason of the $7 million differential between his income and mine. I'm definitely better looking than he is, and I'm sure he'd acknowledge that if he had to. But it's just one of those things where we're not in competition with each other, but you can look at strategies and say, yeah, that strategy was a lot more productive than this strategy. But again, as he said, I'm living a good life. I got, no snow on the ground out there. It's a little overcast today, but Nikken has blessed me with a beautiful home and nice transportation and some real estate properties, commercial and residential. And it's the best financial business decision I've ever made in my life. I didn't make a lot of them, obviously, before this, but I really feel very fortunate that someone shared passive income, reproductive residual income inside of a package with the products that are life-changing that I'm very proud to promote to people, and that is very needed and very timely.
Fantastic. Wow. Thank you for sharing your story, Susan. Wonderful story, and all the best in Chile. I'll probably run into you there sometime in the next couple of months. So cool. Look forward to working with you.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Well, that brings us to me. I'll make mine brief as I wrap up here. So again, as I said, my name is Mike DiMuccio. I've been a Nikken Royal Diamond since 1997. I joined Nikken in December of 1991 while everybody was getting ready for the Christmas season, slowing things down, shutting things down. We were given the heads up that Nikken was going to be launching in Canada in January 1992. So I had a small window to make a decision. First of all, it took me 48 hours to make the decision. When I was first introduced to Nikken, I was not looking for a business. My background being aerospace engineering and writing and producing original music. In fact, I was hoping that that would be my career, but things kind of came to a grinding halt with my music. And I ended up working for a friend of mine, which was just supposed to be for the summer, make some extra cash and figure things out, as an electrician. He was building a small electrical contracting company. And, what happened was he started hiring people and asked me to teach them what I'd learned just like the day before. So the next thing I knew, days became weeks, weeks became months, and months became years, literally 3 years into that. And I had 3 crews in trucks, and he got the work and I got the work done. And it was absolutely nothing to do with the life that I had designed for myself or envisioned for myself, what Susan was sharing with you, the idea of living the lifestyle of the rich and famous as a world-recognized musician or singer-songwriter. I was so far away from that. And of course, you might wonder, well, why the aerospace? Well, I was just good in school, and the only thing that I liked was the space program and anything that had to do with space. So that's how I ended up doing that. But as an electrician, I was hit from behind, rear-end collision, sustained a low back injury called whiplash of the lower lumbar, or basically low back whiplash. And I was undergoing physiotherapy, chiropractic, and massage treatment. Every other day I was in somebody's office for 1.5 years with no resolve whatsoever. The last day was as if it was the first day. So in spite of all of this technology they had available and expertise that they had available, it took an entrepreneur who had no medical background at all to say, hey, I think I might have found something. Come over and take a look. And what they presented to me was a small magnet about the size of a credit card from this company that had a label on it, Nikken. And he said, put it on where it hurts. So I did. He said, let's watch this video that explains a little bit about who these guys are. And we did. By the time that video was done, I started to get a picture that this was really more about a business opportunity than it was about my back. But besides the fact that I felt somewhat embarrassed for both of us, I noticed something. My back didn't hurt. Now I wasn't sure if it was my mind placeboing myself or if this thing actually did something. Long story short, took the product home, tried it on my father who was suffering terribly from problems with his sciatica, a terrible limp, terrible range of motion, threshold of pain way up there. I mean, he was just limping around the house like an old man. It was making it almost impossible to work. 2 nights with this thing on the small of his back. He didn't watch a video. He didn't even know there was a business associated with this. I just said, hey, let's try this. And he called me from work after 2 days and said, can you get some more of these things? I got some friends at work that want to buy them. And there it was. The evidence that I was looking for, that it wasn't in my mind, that this stuff really actually worked. And it was very space agey, if you think about it, because my background being aerospace, I watch Star Trek all the time. And so all of a sudden I'm looking at this product that could be like of the Star Trek era where, you know, an energy field can make a difference in somebody's well-being. And that blew my mind. Well, I decided to get involved, not being in business for myself, not having a background in sales, being more of an artist and an engineer. But I did know one thing. There were people out there that knew more than I did. So the one thing that I think I did well and I would encourage everyone to do is get help. And that's exactly what I did. I called upon an acquaintance who I knew was a multimillionaire who had been successful in business. Even though I had really nothing to offer him, I had Nikken. And at the worst, he could just say, hey, here's what I recommend you do. I was looking for help, which means directly or indirectly. He could help me by just simply giving me some coaching, some advice, maybe leading me to somebody. It turns out, though, when I went to visit him, he had a problem with his knee. Scotch taped this magnet to his knee, and presto, he is running around his office saying, I can't believe this, I can't believe this. A guy who was suffering from a knee problem from playing tennis on his brother's tennis court 3 months earlier, would not take the medication because it upset his stomach. All of a sudden, this magnet did more for him than anybody he had seen as a medical professional in the last 3 months. And we were both amazed. I was just as amazed as he was. Well, he started firing a bunch of questions, and I did the next best thing I would recommend anybody do. When they start asking you questions, that's when you know they're interested. Simple. But I didn't have all the answers. I was too new to know how to answer those questions. But I knew the phone number of somebody who had the answers. And so I got that person on the phone with my little cell phone, said, listen, I'm sitting here with somebody who's asking a lot of questions and seems to be interested and excited about this. Can you share your story with them? And this was somebody who was doing really well with Nikken. We in Nikken call that an ABC. That would be a real measure of how well you're doing in this business, is whether or not you are utilizing this concept of the ABC, you personally or members of your team. The more ABCs that are happening, the more business is happening, because for whatever reason, it works. People know you, and they may know you as something. Like they knew I wasn't a businessman. They knew I didn't have a successful background. I wasn't making a lot of money. I was barely making $30,000 a year, working 14 to 16 hours a day, 6 days a week as an electrician. So I didn't have much to offer in the way of financial smarts. But when you can get somebody on the phone who does have some success with that, then it's no longer about you. It's no longer about your personal story. It's no longer about whether or not this person believes in your possibility. It's now them listening to a third person, and that had an impact. So Bruce decided to get involved, and so it was. Next conversation we had was with this young guy named Tanas, single dad with 2 kids, raising them and having a tough time with the real estate. And now you just heard Bo's story. And that's how it went, one to the next to the next. And by the end of my 2nd month, I had introduced this sponsored people. I had 154 names on my contact list, and I had introduced this to half of them at least, maybe more, probably more. But long and short, after the first 2 days of or 2 months of really working this hard, and we had a saying back then, 8 till faint. So don't ask me how many hours I worked. I couldn't tell you. I just worked as much as I could every day, 8 till faint. And the result of that was 35 people joined. And like Bo said, some joined just as customers, some joined to maybe do something with it, maybe didn't. But enough of them did something, and some actually took this on and really made something of it. The result of that first 2 months of activity was a business that I'm still getting paid on, as Bo mentioned. But just to contrast the two incomes and what Susan was talking about, if you can compress the activity in time, I think that was the greatest thing that I did. I did what most people would have taken 2 or 3 years, maybe more to do. I did in 2 months, and has earned me over $20 million as a result. So I'm a very strong proponent of whatever you're going to do it in as least amount of time possible. Even if Nikken says you have 3 months to do this in the compensation plan, don't take the 3 months. Do it in as least amount of time as possible, because everything you do has a consequence. It translates into duplication. It translates into how others will follow the lead. And that can have a compounding effect that is explosive. So again, just compress time. So I would do what I did again, but I would also do what Bo suggested. Continue to do it. So I did actually do that. I launched my business and relaunched my business 4 separate occasions. When we got the opportunity to go ahead and launch in Mexico, I took that opportunity and flew down there and helped a few people like Susan's doing right now, and going to Chile to get things going. And that's resulted in a huge network there and so forth. So I've enjoyed an incredible life and lifestyle as a result of making Nikken something on the front burners and not something on the sideline or on the back burners. And that's really what's here. There's something for everyone, whether you're just looking for something on the side, something just to support what you've got going, or something that could really be on the front burners and really give you the future that you've dreamed of. I know that I was 27, 28 years old when I looked at this, and I was pretty ambitious. I wanted a life, and I wanted a high quality life. I did not want a job. I didn't want to have that stress working, week after week, paycheck to paycheck. I just did not want that, even though that's what I was doing, because I didn't know any better and I didn't have any other opportunity presented to me. So when this came along, I put 2 and 2 together, and I knew I could do pretty much anything anybody else can. I could learn to. And the success that some were having was so extraordinary, I figured even if I was only 10% as good as that, it would still be a heck of a lot better than what I was doing. So I took a chance on me. Nikken was already successful. Nikken is already successful. And it's hardly likely that Nikken's future is, hinged on me or anybody on this call. But you can participate in this wonderful journey, in this wonderful future, as we make Nikken a household name in North America and bring Nikken to the rest of the world, like Chile and other countries that are waiting for an opportunity like this one. So we welcome you to participate, join, ask the person who invited you here onto this call or to this recording, how do I get involved? You'll find it's a lot easier than you might imagine. It's probably the simplest thing you've ever done when it comes to your business or your finances. But don't let that fool you. There's a real business here. Treat it like one, and it'll pay you like one. Thanks, everybody, for joining. Thanks, Bo. Thanks, Susan, for joining. And all of you back out there who are listening, thank you for joining this morning, this afternoon. And we look forward to seeing you on the Nikken Highway. Look for this recording in the next little while. Thanks, everybody.